guys, it is feeling like spring today. I am so happy. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Liz and today we are going to be doing my February wrap up. So we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of February. I am so incredibly happy with how this reading month went. I feel like overall I found some new favorite authors. I have a few 5-star reads. I feel like I was able to go outside my comfort zone, but in a good way. I don't feel like I was ever burnt out on reading. I feel like I was just very passionate about my reading this month and I am so incredibly happy. It's the best feeling ever when all you want to do is just sit and read, and I feel like that was the case for this month. Now, before we get into all the books that I read this month, let's see, how many did I even read? I read 13 books this month. One was an audiobook and the rest I read physically. Let's just go ahead and get into this video. Starting out this month, I actually was doing a reading vlog where I was reading romance books for a week, and the first book that I read in that video was Stay by Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen. This is the second book that comes after Good Boy. This book follows the hockey player Matt Erickson, who you see glimpses of him in Good Boy. I remember when I read Good Boy, I was always intrigued by that character, especially because he was recently divorced, he had kids. I remember his teammates just constantly saying how they needed to find him the right girl, and I was really excited about his story. I wasn't completely in love with this book. I gave it 2.5 stars. I liked it slightly better than Good Boy. It was very cheesy, so if you're looking for a very cheesy, lighthearted book, then this would be the one for you. It follows two recently divorced people and watching them navigate getting back into dating. While I was in the middle of that reading vlog, I did finish a book that I had been reading for a while. It took me a while just because I feel like I kept putting it on the back burner while I was reading other books for videos, and that is Vilest Things by Chloe Gong. This is the second book that comes after Immortal Longings. I really love Chloe Gong's work because most, if not all, of her books surround some sort of Shakespearean play. This one follows Cleopatra and Antony, their story, and what I really liked about this world is it's a slightly different fantasy than what I'm used to. People can body jump, so you can take kind of like your soul and jump into someone else's body. This kingdom hosts this tournament where body jumping is kind of what you have to do to stay alive. It's like survival of the fittest. It literally starts as soon as where the first book ended. I think I liked the first book better. This one introduces a lot more characters. It expands the world. You're going outside of this kingdom and exploring new territories within it. I think at the moment she just has one more book planned for the series. I ended up rating this book 3 stars. Once again, I didn't like it as much as the first one. I think the first one I ended up giving 4 stars. I wasn't in love with where our characters were at in this world. I liked their story so much more in the first book. It focused more on the romance in the first book and also just like with the trials and them trying to survive in this world. I felt like that was a lot more fascinating to read, but this one was still a good continuation. I still would recommend it because you get to learn about more characters. I'm still planning on reading the third book when it eventually comes out. Next, we have another romance book that I read once again in that reading vlog, and that is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely adored this story and our characters that we learned about. It follows a woman who is a scientist in the 1960s, and she ends up getting pregnant out of wedlock, and the science community kind of shuns her a little bit. She ends up hosting this cooking show on TV to teach women about cooking, but she decides to change the status quo and teach them about science. I loved this book. I loved the voice behind our character. I go into more detail about this book in that reading vlog, but I just wanted to say, love this book. I think everyone should read it. Next, this is another book that I kind of sprinkled in within, and it took me a while to read this one, but I finally finished it, and that is The Ministry of Time by Kalian Bradley. I have had this on my list for a while now. I've always had it in the back of my brain of a book I wanted to read because I see so many great reviews about it, people raving, saying this is a 5-star read and that it's like different but in a good way. And I went into it with pretty high expectations, thinking that I was going to absolutely love this book. And unfortunately, I just didn't have the same experience. I ended up giving it 3.5, which is still pretty good. I would still recommend it to people. However, I feel like what lost me was the ending. I also like partially jumped back and forth between audio and physical on this one. So I think maybe it got a little lost in translation there. So that might have been my own fault. Basically, the British government has mastered the art of time travel. So they are able able to go back in time and they pull different figures from the past who are about to die and bring them to the future to kind of test them to see how the human body can withstand time travel. And so our main character, she is a part of this government group and she's what's known as a bridge. She's living with this historical figure from the past. He was brought back from the 1800s. What I liked about it was it seemed like the small things were the big things in this book. So like him learning about how a toaster works or how women can work on their own and live on their own and it's not frowned upon, and all the different pieces of history that he's learning throughout this book. It was really endearing watching him learn about it, and I loved seeing the friendship that he created with our main character. But I think once again, like I said, I feel like it just got a little lost in translation for me. I feel like if I had read it physically from start to finish, I probably would have enjoyed it more than I did. Unfortunately, it's gonna stay at a 3.5. Maybe I'll reread it in the future and see if I have a different experience. Then I listened to A 40-Year Kiss as an audiobook, and I have to say I really enjoyed this story. I ended up rating it 4 stars. This follows our main character who is kind of getting back into the dating scene. He is now in like his 60s, I think, and he's going on a date with his ex-wife. Him and his ex-wife were married many decades ago, and it was young love, and they ended up getting divorced, and now they're kind of reigniting that love that they had for each other once upon a time. And it was really sweet in seeing them get to know each other and falling back in love with their current selves who've grown and matured over time. Anyone could enjoy at any age, just because you're seeing from their perspective of living their life apart, so like growing apart and doing their own thing and then slowly coming back together. So a second chance love, which I thought was really sweet, and I highly recommend this story. Next, I read Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. This was an ARC that I had received, and I think it's gonna be out this month, so you should get your hands on it because it is perfect for fans of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I've read it, and I have to say I 100% agree with that statement. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Murphy's just like playing in his litter box. Not even using the bathroom, just playing. Are you done? This story follows our main character who she can remember all of her past lives. So basically there's like reincarnation happening here. She's trying to survive past her 18th birthday. When she turns 18, she always gets killed by the same guy. She has no clue why he keeps killing her before her 18th birthday. In her most current life that she's in this story, her younger sister has, I think, cancer, and she needs like a blood transfusion, and her sister's the only one who has the matching blood. She wants to survive in order to save her sister, and so the stakes are a little bit heightened. She's trying to save someone before she herself gets taken. But the kicker is they have fallen in love with each other in every single one of these lives. So it's like love, hate. So the whole time it's kind of a mystery that you're trying to figure out. What I really liked is that throughout the different chapters, you're getting present day, but then you also get chapters of her past lives. So you're getting to learn about their journey, their history with each other, and you're slowly piecing it together as you go. I think anybody who likes romantasy would also enjoy this book. Next up, I read Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Springs series. There are a bunch of interconnected standalone books. This story follows Jasper, and he is not a brother in this family, but he's kind of like an honorary family member. And I remember when I read the first 2 books, I was always very curious about Jasper, so I was really excited to finally get his story. And you're following him and Sloane is the cousin of all of the brothers in this family. They're not related in any way. I know people read that and they're like, incest. No. He's a hockey player, she's a ballerina. She is engaged, about to be married, and you get to see kind of how her wedding falls apart, and he's there supporting her through every step of that grieving process and trying to figure out what she wants out of life, which I really thought was beautiful when I read this story. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I think Elsie Silver's books will always be at least a 4 stars for me because I love her writing style. It's very easy and bingeable to read. I love the found family. I love seeing all the past characters in these books and the small town, and it's just cozy and it's comfortable, and I always have a fun time while reading her books. Next, I read Beartown by Fredrik Backman. I loved this book. This is another book that I read in a reading vlog where I read sad books. I was trying to make myself cry. This is one of those authors that I told myself I had to read at least one of his books this year, and I'm so glad I finally did because I loved it. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I adored this book. I adored this world and the characters that you're learning about. I was so invested in every single character story in this book, and I'm so excited to continue reading this trilogy. I feel like it talks about so many different topics that we all go through, and since you're following so many different characters, anyone can relate to someone in this book. So highly recommend this book. I think everyone should read it. Next, we have The Librarians of Lisbon by Suzanne Nelson. This was another book in that same reading vlog. It is about two American librarians who end up getting sent to Lisbon on a mission, and they're basically spies, and they both have their own missions that they're doing. So you're flipping back and forth within each chapter to each woman and their mission, and I really enjoyed my time while reading this. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I haven't read a ton of historical fiction, and I really want to read Kristen Hanna this year, but I feel like this is the perfect book for anybody who likes The Nightingale because it's essentially the same thing. I thought it was really beautiful. I loved seeing these two different women and their two different paths that they were taking within the story. Next up, I read Viciously Yours by Jamie Applegate Hunter. I read this book because I saw a video on it and someone, I think it was the author, was sharing different quotes from the book, and immediately I ordered it. I had to read it, and it wasn't the best writing ever, but it also wasn't the worst. It was very bingeable. It was very addicting, and I had to finish the story. It is not high fantasy. It is not high stakes in any way. It is 100% focused on the romance. Basically, in this world, our main character, he is the prince of this fey kingdom, and basically when he turns 13, the gods in this world whisper the name of his mate to him, and from then on, he's just searching for his mate, trying to figure out where she lives, and they find out that she is actually a human, and he is not allowed to leave his realm until he turns 25. I think he decides to write her letters. So throughout the story, you're following them from when they're 13 all the way until they're 25 and can finally meet, and you're reading their letters, this pen pal relationship that's happening, and I loved it. I thought it was really sweet. It was very cheesy in parts when they finally met. It was spicy. This is a spicier book as well, so if you like a lot of spice in your romanticities, this is the book for you. There wasn't a ton of plot or anything. It, like I said, it focused mainly on the romance. I settled on a 3 stars for this book, mainly because I do wish it had more of a plot. I wish there was something going on, and because of the cheesy factor in some parts, I got the ick a few times, unfortunately. If you just want a fun book, this is the one for you. Next, I read one of my first graphic novels, and that was Extraordinary by V.E. Schwab. This is actually book 1.5 in between Vicious and Vengeful, which I've read Vicious, I have not read Vengeful, but I really am glad that I read this, especially if I ever decide to read Vengeful, because this is in between those 2 books. It is following our main character who her bus gets in this big car crash. She dies, gets brought back. It's like a miracle that she got brought back, and she can now see how people die. So if she looks at someone, she sees exactly how they're gonna die one day. And when she sees her own reflection, she sees this one character from Vicious, and I'm not gonna say who it is because if you haven't read Vicious, I don't want to spoil you, but she sees this one character from Vicious constantly, so she knows he is who's gonna kill her one day. She's trying to change her destiny or her future, and she ends up teaming up with some other people who also have extraordinary powers. I really enjoyed it. It was very quick, easy, fast-paced. The artwork within it was really cool as well. It's just very well done. I really enjoyed it and highly recommend it to people who are fans of V.E. Schwab. Next up, I read The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosu Natsukawa? I don't know how to say that name, unfortunately. This story follows our main character who his grandfather just passed away, and his aunt, who he doesn't know, is coming to take him, and he's gonna move, and his grandfather owns a bookstore, and so he has been taking care of the bookstore since his grandfather passed away. One day he's closing up the bookshop, and this talking cat appears and says, "I need your help. We need to go save some books." And so you're going on these different missions with this talking cat. It honestly it had so many great discussions throughout the story about publishing industry and about being a book lover, a book owner, and as a book lover, this resonated with me very deeply, and I really enjoyed it. It was very short and sweet, so this is a quicker book as well, but I had a good time reading it. It had great messages throughout the story. I settled on 3.5 stars, mainly because I wish it was longer. If it was longer and that the different missions that they go on throughout the story were longer and a little bit more complex, I think I would have rated it way higher, but I still enjoyed it, and this was a very fun and easy read. And the final book that I read in the month of February is Love to Hate You by Marina Adair. This book actually comes out in April. I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it for what it was. I feel like going into it, if you're needing a palate cleanser or a romance book that isn't going to make you think very hard, then this is the perfect story for you. I think it's a really fun rom-com type story. It follows our main character who is a bookshop owner. She is basically in this like turf war with the mega chain bookstore that's opening up across the street. And so that is the guy in this book. He's the CEO of that company, and they have this kind of like rivalry going on. They're pranking each other. You can just tell that there's chemistry there the entire time. The banter is bantering in this book. She ends up going to her family's lake house, and when she gets there, her twin sister arrives with her new boyfriend, and her new boyfriend brings along his brother, who is none other than the CEO that she has been in a turf war with. It was just really, really fun. I enjoyed it. It was a little bit cheesier in some parts, but I still had fun with this book, and I highly recommend it for anybody in the spring or summer months, because I think this was just the perfect sweet rom-com. I am struggling to hold these for whatever reason. I did not stack them well. And that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this gave you some new books to read or look forward to, and hopefully this was just entertaining for you to hear some of my thoughts. This was a very fun month for me. I feel like I was thriving in my reading, and I really loved getting to read outside my comfort zone, and I'm looking forward to doing that more in this upcoming month. I'm going on a couple of trips, so you know there's gonna be lots of time to read, which is amazing. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. I'm gonna say bye. Say hi, Mark. Happy reading. Bye.